Permits, licenses, insurance, and other pre-event considerations. Event planners need to have a Rolodex of permit and license issuing authorities included in every event plan. These authorities may be on the federal, state, county, and municipal government levels. Often there is some redundancy in permitting. Nevertheless, you want to make sure you have all the necessary permits and licenses in hand before the opening day of each of your events. You are also responsible for making sure all of your service providers, suppliers, and vendors have their operations licenses current. When contracting with these suppliers, ask to have a copy of their current licenses included with the contract. Following are the most common permit and licensing types that you are responsible for obtaining and where you would typically go to obtain them. Don't forget to add permit and license fees to your budget and start very early on to obtain permits, as some take months for approval. Special event permits. These permits which give you permission to hold your event at a designated venue within city limits are most often obtained through the municipal government offices of special events and include the event title, description, management authority, attendee size, dates, location, site plan, route map, security plan, medical plan, accessibility plan, parking and transportation plans, activity and entertainment plans, food, beverage, concession and alcohol details, sanitation requirements, refuse and recycling plan, and insurance information. Smaller municipalities may not have a special events department, but they will have permit requirements. Contact City Hall for applications and requirements. If you are holding your event on public lands, you'll need to obtain special events permits through authorities such as state parks, the U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, and the Park Service. It is always a good idea to contact the county government in which an event will be held, if it is outside a municipality, as they may have stipulations as well. Have your special events permit in hand before you attempt to acquire any additional permits required. Alcohol use permit. Some properties will not allow the sales or use of alcohol whatsoever. If you plan to serve alcoholic beverages at your event or allow attendees to bring in their own beverages, you need to find out from the Special Event Permit Authority what must be done to obtain an alcohol permit. State Alcoholic Beverage Control Boards, ABCs, are the ultimate permit issuing authorities, but most permitting can be handled at the municipal level. The regional police can close an event at a moment's notice if you don't have the proper permitting, so dot your I's and cross your T's by contacting all the government authorities who may have a say in your event's alcohol considerations. Building permit. Most cities and counties require that you obtain a building permit for any temporary structures associated with your event, whether they are made of conventional construction materials or tent fabrics. Ask your municipality government office first. They may refer you to the county for a permit application. Electrical and generator permits. Municipal codes and regulations departments typically issue permits for power sources and wiring for events. They also send inspectors to the venue to sign off on the electrical system before the event can start. With these and other permits, remember to ask who you should call to request an inspection so you don't open the event without inspections being completed. Entertainment and stages permit. If your event will feature live entertainment, you may need to obtain a special permit for the stage, entertainment, and seating setup. In most cases, these permits are acquired through the same authority issuing the overall special event permit. Special effects permits. These include pyrotechnic, fireworks, laser, etc. Code and regulations departments of municipalities and counties are usually the ones issuing these permits. As with the electrical permits, they will almost always want to inspect the setup before it is used. Lake, river, or creek use permit. Bodies of water and waterways are highly regulated and may have a number of regulating authorities overseeing use of them. Ask the Special Event Permit Authorizing Agency what other special permits you may need to have on inland water on the water events. They will refer you to the proper authorities. Don't assume that because the body of water is within the geographic lines of your venue that you have permission to use it. Neighborhood block parties, street races, and parades permits. Neighborhood block parties, parades, and other street events require street closings, police security, and notification of all neighbors within the impact zone. In some cases, permits for such events have to go through City Council approval processes. Contact both the city government and the local police department about obtaining permits for these events. Health permits. If you plan to serve or sell food, make sure your vendors and caterers have all the requisite licensing current. Then find out from your event permitter if you need any special permits from the city, county, or state health departments. To be on the safe side, have all your food service providers display a copy of their current permit and display any special permits you may be required to obtain as well. Park use and athletic field permits. Although parks are places for people to use at will, whenever they are used for an organized event that convenes any size group for a special purpose, permitting will likely be required. Contact the appropriate authority, whether it be municipal, county, state, or federal public lands and parks management, for permit information. Also check with the municipal government if using a park within city limits. Public assembly permit. Public assembly permits are safety and security-based permits, often granted by departments of public safety. These authorities frequently inspect the venue and its structures before granting the permit, and may require modifications to them to bring them up to code as places of public assembly. Temporary use permit. Temporary use permits grant user rights for events on any non-residential property that is not public land. In most cases, the manager of the venue will be able to assist the planner in obtaining such a permit if it is necessary on the municipal, county, or state level. These permits may be implicit in the overall special event permit or may need to be acquired separately. Tent, canopy, and membrane structure permits. These structures are regulated by the fire departments and other safety codes and are obtained through the proper channels at City Hall. In almost all cases, your tent structure application will be denied if either the venue or the structure supplier have previous code violations. The city can steer you in the right direction to check on venue and vendor status before you contract with them and apply for the permit. Trade show and exposition permit. Established trade show and exposition facilities will have staff experienced in making sure all the necessary permits are in place for your event. They can also ensure that you don't inadvertently perform code violations by overcrowding areas or blocking exits, etc. If you plan to hold such an event in an unestablished venue, you'll need to work closely with the appropriate government agency to make sure your venue is up to snuff with all the applicable codes, from building to electrical, safety to vendor licensing. Parking permits. Even if the venue you choose has ample parking on site or nearby, don't assume that you don't need special parking permits. These permits are typically issued by the city and help your attendees by establishing reserved parking or discounting and waiving on-street parking costs and restrictions, respectively. Sound permits. Issued by the municipality or police department, many communities require special permits for amplified sound. This allows the authorities to establish appropriate sound levels based on codes and regulations and respond to any complaints from surrounding residents. Concession and vendor permits, crafts, farmers market, etc. Many vendors who might exhibit their wares at your event already have their own required permits, which you should ask for copies of. But the city where you hold your event may require the event itself to have a blanket permit for vendor activity, and there may be associated taxation issues. On-the-water event permits or marine event permits. For on-the-water events such as sailboat regattas and powerboat races, you'll need to obtain a marine event permit from the U.S. Coast Guard if the event will be held on waters they patrol, saltwater in the Great Lakes, for example. Even if you have a special event permit from a city marina for the shoreside activity, you will need a U.S. Coast Guard permit as well. Fuel permits. Some government entities require that you obtain special safety-related permits if there will be any fuel products brought to the venue for use during the event, propane for example. The venue or municipality can help you determine the type of permit you need. Solicitation or fundraising licenses. Many states require that people performing fundraising activities are licensed to do so. If your event is charitable or political, and you intend to obtain resources from the attendees, either beforehand via mail, phone or internet, or during the event with raffles, auctions, or direct solicitation, you, your event, and or the people doing the soliciting may need licenses from the state government. Open flame usage permit. If you intend to have multiple fire pits, open flame barbecues, or a bonfire, you will probably need a special permit for them. Make sure you tell your event permit issuing authority about your plans and obtain the permit if required. The fire department or law enforcement can douse the flames and even close the event if you don't have the appropriate permit. Animal attractions licenses. If your event is going to have a petting zoo, serve as a pet adoption event, or bring domestic or wild animals in for any purpose, you should check with your regional U.S. Department of Agriculture for any regulatory information that may apply. Your event permit issuing agency may have the information you need, but animals are regulated by the federal government in many ways, so go to the top on this one as well. Inflatables and carnival rides permits. Typically, codes and regulations department matters. The safe practices and ensuring of these activities usually requires special permitting. The venue or permit authority will know if your umbrella permit does or does not cover these events. Flight permits. If you are holding an event that involves flight, a hot air balloon festival or airplane race, for example, you need to talk with the area aviation providers to find out if there are no-fly zones nearby and how to obtain proper permits relating to them. Special permits that allow the audience onto the flight deck may also be required. Signs and banners permit. Many communities have strict rules about the size, style, and exhibiting of signage. Your venue point person or City Hall permitting staff should be able to supply you with restrictions or special permits needed. So that covers most of the permits you'll likely be required to obtain during your career as an event planner. If you have any inkling that something you are planning for an event might need special permitting, ask every authority you can think of, and if the answer is no permit required, get that in writing too. That way, if the one authority you don't ask shows up and tries to shut you down, you can prove your due diligence and they'll likely help you straighten the situation out.